Hey guys, it's Ryan here, and today we are going to be not coding. We may be in the IDE, but that's just to look at code. First, before you watch this video, go watch my RGB, my simpler level loading concept, my simpler pixel processing engine, I think it was called, where instead of using hex, we use RGB objects like this to process what pixel we're at and do this stuff. But I'll be explaining that all in a moment. So first, let's go to our main game state. Instead of adding this new bush, we call initialize level or just init LVL. We create a new level with the load level method in level. This creates a new empty image. Takes the image from our res folder, the level folder, and then lvl1.png. And then it says int px. It's a double array. And the length of the first dimension is image.getWidth. The second dimension's length is image.getHeight. Then it goes through all of the stuff by going through every column in every row. And then it says that pixel or that column or pixel says that column or that pixel is equal to image.getRGB. It gets the integer value of the red, green, and blue color from the image on that pixel. And then it just returns a new level, passing in the game state, or this, the image width, the image height, the image, and then the pixel array. So we can close that now. And in this constructor, it just sets all of those. Then, when we go back to game state, we call load tiles in LVL, or level. This does a double for loop. It loops for every single pixel. It goes through all the columns in the row. It says it loops through all the rows, and inside of that loop, it loops through all the columns. And then it says map object obj equals get object xy, get object at that x and that y. And then it says if that object does not equal to null, and then it just adds it to the screen. Then for get object, this is where it gets interesting. It gets the pixel from the x and y, then it creates a new vector, vector integer to be exact, of the x times 16 times program.getScale, because every map object is 16 times program.getScale. So we have to multiply the x and y by program.getScale, because the x and y are going by not 16 times program.getScale. Each x and y is just one pixel, so I have to multiply it. Before this is really where it really gets interesting. This is where I must explain it to you. Before, we had a color C, and then it took this px object Excuse me. So what happened is it created a new color object out of the px variable, the px RGB, and then it says that color, or no. It creates a new string called hex, and then it formats it into hex, of course, using this whole line of code called string.format. And in the string.format, it uses this code that repeats %02x, and then it checks for the hex in a switch statement. But we created a better system with the RGB object. So we created a new RGB object called RGB and put in the PX, or the pixel color. And let's go into this. This can take 3 constructors. The first one is it just takes the raw R, G, and B. The next one, it takes a color. And then the third one, it takes a whole RGB color. The first one is pretty simple. All it does is just set the variables to these values. The next one, it sets the variables to c.getRed and c.getGreen and c.getBlue. This one does virtually the same thing, except instead of just passing in the color, it creates a new color with the RGB variable. And then these are all getters of getRGB, and then it gets the RGB from the color. Then getAWT color just returns a new color with the RGB. Then these just get the red, the green, and the blue. And then these are what we really want. Compare, compare, and compare, and compare. This is the actual one that actually does stuff. It says if this.r equals rgb.r, this, and it basically does that for all green R, G, and B. It says if the R, G, and B are the same as the other objects R, G, and B, then we say yeah, it compares. And then if it doesn't, nope, it doesn't compare. Returns false. And then for these three, we just return compare, this compare, with a new RGB object. For this one, it says RGB. For this one, it says C. For this one, it just puts in RGB again for the actual variable named RGB. And this toString method just says when somebody prints me, then I print the R followed by a comma and the G followed by a comma and then the B. So yeah, that's how the RGB object works. So the new advanced system creates this bush object of an RGB object, a final object. And so it uses just the 3 integers constructor. So it says 0 red, 255 green or max green, and 0 blue. And then let's go back to this getObject method. It creates a new RGB object instance called RGB using the 1 integer, what's it called? The one integer constructor. Sorry about that. I just got a little messed up. It's kind of late. It's like 9:15. right now. Using this px object, this ps integer, and then it uses an if check using the rgb.compare method, passes in bush, and then it returns new bush. It returns the vector I, but to a float vector, and then it says game.getPlayer for the player. So I think I provided a good explanation. You could tell me if you didn't learn enough in the comments or by a PM. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and goodbye.